We're in that. The news, that's all it's talking about right now.
Yes, yes.
Will not stop.
Ah,
I know there's other things happening in the world.
yes. Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Maryanna Lanham. At a young age, Maryanna became addicted to meth. During that time, she knew deep down she was living a life that was not hers. She committed to quitting, applied to the University of Maryland, graduated with a bachelor's in health and human services, and the rest is history. She is now the executive director of Dream Queen Foundation. I love that, where she leads workshops, networking, and groups as a public speaker on empowerment, yes, achievement, and leadership. She is now dedicated to teaching teen girls the importance of responsibility and leadership in order to create powerful women leaders in today's world. Welcome, Maryanna. Thank you for being here. How are you?
I am great. I'm having an awesome day.
Girl, what a great, strong name for your organization.
I didn't name it. I didn't create it, but I do like it. But yeah, so it was originally created by Aaron Lewis. I took over. I've been a part of it for 7 or 8 years since its inception, but I took over as executive director last year.
I love it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being here and being willing to hang out with me for a little bit, share some of your story and some of your inspiration. I so appreciate women like yourself who get the mission, who understand the importance of storytelling and are helping individuals who are going through some tough times right now to recognize that, they can pivot.
You can.
Yeah.
I think it's all about understanding the difference between your circumstances and your choices. And knowing that you can always change your mind, but you can't always change your circumstances. And you can make a different decision based on different information. And it never has to be I wish I would have then. It's like, but you did the best you could with the information you had.
Yes.
And so to me, it's all about understanding that sometimes stuff happens. Sometimes we make terrible choices. Like I did meth, okay, for like 2 years. Like that's not okay. But I can also change my mind. I don't have to be that thing, right?
Yes.
In my life, I had always identified as whatever was wrong with me. Right? So I was mental illness. I was intestinal polyps. I was heartburn, right? Like all of these things like ruled my world. And I did everything to try to work within their reason, not realizing that that was a circumstance, but I could actually make new choices and new decisions and really become whoever I want to be, you know? And I think it's super important when, especially when we're talking to young people, for them to know that difference.
100%. So you mentioned meth, but I don't know, was that like the biggest challenge? What was the biggest challenge that you've gone through in your life from then till now? And what did you learn from it?
So my biggest current challenge is I'm going through a divorce. I've been with my husband for 15 years. That has been a struggle. But what's funny is when you find gratitude in all of the different, like, I'm at a different place in my life, so that being a major challenge at this point is like finding gratitude and realizing what I'm gaining by losing him instead of the other way around. It has really changed my perspective majorly. Um, but the things that affected me more when I was younger was undiagnosed depression and anxiety, and then I was misdiagnosed with what is it called? Bipolar. Sorry, and I was on a lot of medication for that. And along with that, when I was 21, a kid that I've been friends with like my whole life killed himself. And so it was just like that stacking effect, right? And so as each circumstance occurred, I made poor decisions, and then a new one came, which led me to keep going down in the wrong direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that culmination of like my 20s, I've had pancreatitis 4 times, I've had intestinal polyps that are precancer, and all of it together was like this thing that I just kept like, well, because of this, I can't do anything, and boop, 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 and having to rewire my brain, I think, was the biggest challenge, right? So those are circumstances that I couldn't control, but learning how to value myself and how to wake up with gratitude and how to define myself and not let anything around me do that for me. That's been a lot of work.
I bet. I bet, definitely. Um, I just had somebody on recently, and you kind of just brought this back up for me because you were mentioning the different things that you were dealing with, whether it was during that time or just in general, and, owning it as yours. And somebody that was on was just talking about how changing the mindset of a person who has abused substances to recognize that they recognized something in themselves was off and they did their best with what they knew, which is exactly what you just said, to medicate
That
themselves.
is exactly why I was on it for as long as I was, definitely.
I had never even thought of that before.
Many times people have drug addictions because they don't know how to deal with an actual mental illness that needs to be treated appropriately.
Yeah. And
Super true.
but it's like empowering because it's like you took what you knew, that's all you knew, and your circumstances to help yourself. Like,
Yep.
good on you.
Yeah, that is
Kind
a
of,
great way to look at it.
yeah, kind of like sucky, long term, but like if just changing it just that little bit gives you back some like, yeah, I was trying.
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely. And I feel like I was about to say something that my brain is not wanting to tell me. Hold on you, ba 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 ba, going back. Um, a lot of times we give ourselves stigma.
Ooh, what do you mean?
Well, with drug abuse is an easy one, and even mental illness, right? Because you talk about either one of those, and all of a sudden now you've put like a label on yourself, right? But I had this shame around all of it, and I had so much shame that I couldn't even be my authentic self because I was afraid somebody was going to find out. Um, and for me, stepping into the different roles of leadership that I have over the last 8 or 9 years, I had to get rid of that, or I was not going to be successful. And so I'm not recommending everybody do this, but I wrote a chapter in a book and told the entire story and everything I learned and all of those things. And I wanted it, just want it to be me. And within our Teen Girl Mentorship Program, one of the basics of our training the women mentors is everybody is whole and complete exactly the way they are when they walk into this room.
I love that.
All the things that have happened prior had to happen for them to be who they are.
I love
And
that.
if we have to say that to ourselves about them, we better be saying it about ourselves, right? And so it really holds you to like a different standard is kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. That is one of the awesome things about being in this industry is you have to rise.
Yeah. No,
It's cool.
you can't say one thing and be another. It
Yeah.
won't work and everybody knows.
Yeah.
No matter what industry you're in, really.
Yeah.
People know when they're talking to an authentic person and they know when somebody is not.
Yeah. So everybody is whole and complete.
That's it.
Never not.
Always. Yeah. We are whole and complete humans. You know, when we talk to teenagers, obviously their brains aren't all the way developed, but they are whole and complete and exactly who they're supposed to be. And to me, especially, oh my gosh, middle school, comparing yourself to everybody and not realizing your own values and your own strengths and your own talents and all of those things that make you unique and amazing.
Yeah.
But the reason why we really say that is that we're not here to change them. We're not here to tell one girl that her shirt is too short or that she's exposing too much cleavage or whatever it is that in our minds we're like, you can't wear that in public because we're not their parents, right? We're giving them the tools to better themselves. So they're whole and complete, right? And if they want to take the steps to be more and better, then they can.
That's
But
awesome.
it's not up to us to do that for them. That's their job.
And when you were first, when we were first talking, one of the first things you were talking about was you identified, I don't know if that's a word that you used, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you identified as like being your, what words do you use? Like anxiety, depression? I don't know what you said. What were you saying?
Oh,
You
so I think what you're talking about is how I identify my anxiety and depression.
yeah,
I feel like I believe that anxiety and depression, just like any other disease, is something that you fight, right? Like F cancer, you know, whatever it is, you are doing everything in your power not to have that affecting your life, right? And so I kind of made it into like an entity, a thing that is trying to affect my life.
yeah.
And so I did name it. I think that's what we were talking about is I gave it like the simplest silly name of Grover. And Grover, I know it's a puppet and he's great and it upsets my friends, but it also takes his power away. I'm not going to name him Tank, you know, like, but it's like Grover, I don't.
Yes. Okay, I get that.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yes.
so on those days, because we're all going to do it, right? We tell ourselves some wacky stories. We all do it. But on those days when I start realizing that I'm going down that rabbit hole of just that self defeating, you're worthless, whatever, I'm like, Grover, you need to set aside. I have things to do right now, and I don't have time to take a whole day off and spend it with you. I gotta go. And that helps me switch it. I know a lot of people, when their brains go into like that space, they'll just like out loud yell the word stop. Stop. We're not having this conversation. And it takes like you purposefully changing the language that you're saying to yourself to be in a space of gratitude and growth and value versus what's missing, but what you have.
I
And
love
when you do that, guess what grows? Same way that I went down that whole path, that terrible decision after decision, which is a lot easier to make bad decisions, just an FYI. But anyway, um, but as you learn that, you know, and when you're in the middle of, so I have a quick story. I don't know how much time we have, but this is a really, really good story. Last week, and this is going into this. Anyway, my aunt had stage 4 cancer. She was dying, taking off all her medication. And she wanted to stay with my parents in their apartment. My father had a stroke, a heart attack, and another heart attack, and he is basically living in a hospital bed right now. So we have him in the hospital bed in the living room. We have a bedroom for her in the hallway, and somebody has to be with her at all times because she was, slowing down. So the weekend before she died, Friday and Saturday, I was her caretaker when we didn't have somebody there during the day. So I had her at night, and just taking her to the toilet or changing her clothes, all the stuff that a caregiver does, make sure she's eating, make sure she's drinking, all of that stuff. Number one, I'm so grateful my dad had a stroke, or I wouldn't have known how to do any of it because I was taught by the physical therapist that worked with him in the beginning. So I
God.
wouldn't have had that skill. But anywho, that's not the story. Her and I get her to bed, I'm tucking in my little baby girl, and we're sitting there talking. And she looks at me and she goes, I'm so grateful for our family. I'm so grateful you could be here with me. I'm so grateful for your mom letting me stay in this apartment. And it gives me the chills thinking about it because she died 3 days later.
Oof.
She had stage 4 cancer. So many people sit in the funk of that circumstance that she had no control over.
Wow. Okay.
And in that moment where she knows she's going to die, she never said, why me? She never said, why, all of those things. And she never went down that. It was gratitude and love. And I just thought,
Wow.
if she can do that,
Yeah.
we can teach it to our kids and we can teach it to ourselves, because that's how she lived a full life, was giving and gratitude and selflessness and all of those things that we talk about. But that is just such a living, beautiful testament to her that, like, I stood up at the funeral. I was like, I just want to let you guys know, if anybody's feeling sorry for themselves, that she's gone. But I told the same story because we gotta remember what we have, not what we don't have.
Yeah. 100%. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
How old was she?
72.
Is your father still?
Yes, he is chilling out in his hospital bed. He is feeling fine. I should have physical therapy soon, but it seems like every time we get something aligned, something else happens. He's got like 100 lives. So,
Oh,
but thankfully he was in the army and we have VA benefits. And so they do a lot for him, which is
wow.
wonderful. I do not like that he has PTSD, but I am grateful for the benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um, so, I mean, I'm assuming that at some point between meth and now, you dove into personal development. When did that happen? How did you fumble across a book or a person or a video or a person that's pivoted you?
So it was 9 years ago. And about when in my mid 20s, I was diagnosed with bipolar. So the bipolar was there. I was having all these intestinal issues, and I called it my box. Like, I can't do this because I might go manic. I can't do this because I might go depressive. I can't do this or I'm going to get sick again. I can't do this because I break bones. It's a thing. But I can't do anything because I'm fragile, right? I can't. And I built this safety, right? And it was security and all these things. And it was what I lived inside, this little tiny little area. And I go to see a new psychiatrist. And no, she's reading the notes. She's like, from the notes, it doesn't sound like you have bipolar. I was like, excuse me? And she was like, yeah. I was like, well, what? No. I was like, I was diagnosed with this. I'm taking all this medication, and she picks up the book, the DSV-1, whatever. And she starts reading the characteristics. And I didn't have any of them. She's like, you have anxiety and depression, just like, I don't know, 90% of the rest of us. And it just jarred me. It was like the most jarring experience, where the way I describe it is it opened a window in this box. And I was like, well, what the crap is on outside this box besides this that I'm making up?
Wow.
So that was the pivotal point where I started diving in was and figuring this stuff out. A lot of it actually came from the Dream Queen Association, which is the women's networking group. Because we do very similar network style, but we always talk about our desires and celebrations and heart centered leadership and all of those different things. And being around those women, I mean, you feel like you can conquer anything when you share that space.
I love that.
So that's been huge.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. What has changed since you got into personal development as far as your mindset goes? What's like been the biggest change that you've seen in yourself?
The biggest change, I think, is my internal monologue,
Ooh.
as well as the way I appear in space, like in to people. Like I feel like before I would kind of sidle into a room, and want to fit in. And now it's funny. My friend Beth's husband calls me the Baroness because he says I just walk in the room with this air of authority. Like he said, he he would say, he was like, wow, here she comes. Like he's like the whole room turns. So I mean that's a huge like
Mhm.
physical like obvious change, right?
Yeah.
But for me the biggest one is that internal monologue, how to work it and how to tell people how to work theirs too. Because we're basically working with these computers, these really advanced computers that are our brains, and we can retrain them all the time. Now, will they untrain themselves and we have bad days? And will we get depressed? And will I take a night off sometime and drink a bottle of wine? I will. I'll totally do that,
Yeah.
right? Because we're human. But I feel as though when we start catching ourselves in that language and then changing the sentence, it does then start changing the narrative. Like instead of I'm not good enough, it's I'm going to be better. Even that tiny little thing, or I'm not going to procrastinate and instead start saying I'm going to be proactive. Your brain hears proactive and procrastinate exactly the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So telling yourself I'm going to be proactive, you're most likely going to be more proactive. If you tell yourself you're not going to procrastinate, you're probably going to procrastinate. But just learning all those different things on how to talk to yourself, I think has been huge.
Yeah. What would be some advice for a woman who insists that she can't make enough money? What should she be saying?
Oh, that's a good question. And I have a difficult time with that. And I also have advice for it, which is kind of weird because I was a financial advisor before I did this. I gave up my whole book of business. This is what I'm doing. This foundation is happening, and it will be a thing. But anyway, um, there's a few things. Number one, when you're looking for a job, look at the skills and think about where in your life you may have used them, even if it's not direct. We know statistically that men will read through and be like, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I'll apply for this. And women are like, well, I've never done that. I've never done that. And they won't apply. So give yourself some credit. If you were the freaking, I don't know, the host manager at a local restaurant and you still have management experience, it might not have been in an office, but you still manage people.
Yeah.
And just looking at your little skills, I think is huge. The next thing I would say, I think there is some mindset around it. And I definitely feel that that gratitude piece is super important. I am not, I want to have, personally, I want to have a life that I can do and be whatever I want. I don't need riches. I just want to have enough, right? And even saying it that way, you always have to say, I want abundance, right? I want
Mhm.
enough or more, or abundant or whatever. Because you have to believe that you can have it in order to get it.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to do the work, right?
Yeah.
And so I get like, you have a person that like I'm living in somebody's room in their apartment. I'm eating their food and I can't find a job. You're in a huge survival mode, and trying to find gratitude will literally be the hardest thing you've ever done. But if you start doing it, you'll start stepping out and you'll go to the library and you'll get the resume done and you will find the resources that you need to get yourself to where you need to be. Because the resources are there, but nobody's out there handing them out.
Yeah.
They're not. So you have to know number one is that you deserve a job, you're smart enough, and that you do deserve abundance just like everybody else. And guess what? There's plenty of it out there for all of us. So those are like, I guess, my two big things. But on top of that, I think that people and relationships have so much more value than money. And I think that even though we need money to survive, because that's the way our system works, we need relationships to live. You know what I mean? And if all you're worried about is money, you're going to forget to live. And I really feel that staying present in the moment that you're living is so much more important. And being with the people you're with, like, please put your phone down. Just put your phone down. I mean, I'm to blame sometimes, and I catch myself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm texting at the table, and I'll leave the room and put my phone in another room because it's like so addictive. You just pick it up, even if it's flipped over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. What's the number one lesson you've learned about life?
It's about the present.
Ooh, explain.
I feel that worrying about what's already happened is not very effective. Making plans and working towards what you want in the future, but also like right now, I'm with you now. I don't have a phone going off in the background. I'm not checking emails. I'm here with you in this space and time and being present. And when you do that with the people that you're with, I feel like that's like the greatest thing ever. And I mean, I am so blessed, like unbelievably blessed with friends and family, and I am loved. And you know what? From what I'm hearing, it's because I love them back and I love hard. And I have that giver's heart, right? But I don't know. I just, from all of my different experiences within making a lot of money and making a little money, nothing ever made me more happy than being around the people I love and expressing that or doing nice things versus a nice car or a bigger house.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Um, when we were talking about money, there's a lot of limiting beliefs around all kinds of things, not even just money, all kinds of things just in life. Have you overcome any limiting beliefs or any big ones that you want to highlight? And what do you believe now?
I definitely, my biggest thing was imposter syndrome. I was very worried that somebody was going to find out that I wasn't good enough to do the things that I was doing. And that I was playing a part, but I actually didn't earn the part and wasn't smart enough for it. And that was super hard because if somebody has mental illness, there is within imposter syndrome, you can also disassociate, which basically you then are back here and you're driving yourself around, right? So you don't feel all the way present because you don't think you should have whatever it is. So now you are putting on this play, right? Yeah. And that was very hard because the thing that you have to do first to get over that is to own yourself and who you are and all the things and your strengths and your talents and all that kind of stuff and be like you're good, you're great, you're good enough, you are enough, you're whole and complete, exactly, and perfect exactly the way you are. So the imposter syndrome was really, really hard. That was a huge one. I think, yeah, I'm sure there's other things I can think of if you
How
want.
do you what do you believe now? How did you turn that around?
I do a lot of affirmations. Sometimes I still don't believe it. Um, I think having a tribe of supporters is huge.
Yeah.
Getting the affirmation from people, and the whole love language thing. Mine is words of affirmation. If you tell me I'm beautiful, you love me, and I'm doing a great job every day, I will do everything for you.
Ah,
Um, but it's funny, I speak acts of service. So I love doing things for other people, but I don't actually hear the acts of service. But anyway, um, I got way off track. Sorry. What were we talking about?
oh, limiting beliefs. And I asked, what do you believe now? You were talking about imposter syndrome.
Now I believe that I'm going to make mistakes and that I'm human and that I'm not going to beat myself up for them. And I'm just going to try to do better each time and know that I'm going to fall and know that life does this. And you just have to ride it out.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's why being present is so important to me. It's because I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Something could happen with my dad, my mom, anybody. I've been 4 funerals this year. You just don't know. So, and I mean, my theory is that depression is when you're sitting in the past and so worried about it that you're like, I should have, and I should have, and why didn't I, and all these things. And anxiety is that, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to get there? Blah, blah, blah. But now I'm at a point where, like with the Dream Queen, with the Gals lead, I made a decision that this is going to happen. Am I going to have bad days? Absolutely. Am I going to mess up? 100%. But in my mind, it already happened.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just doing the work to get there. So yeah, if I have a bad day, it's like, well, I'm still getting there. I'm still walking the road.
Yeah.
You don't have to, like that whole, you could just do a semicolon and not a period. You don't have to end the story just because something bad happens or you make a bad decision. Just make a new one, make another one.
Yeah. Definitely. I agree with that. What does success mean to you?
I think the biggest for me, I am more successful now in what I'm doing than I have in any other job, and I'm making the least amount of money I've ever made in my whole life, even right out of college. I am affecting change for women, for teens. I'm helping our community. I'm creating these relationships, and I just, I'm in awe of the opportunity that I have.
Mhm.
And to me, that is successful. To me, I mean, oh my gosh, the relationships I have and the people that I know, that's success.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I define it. I
I
want to
know.
get up every day and not feel like I'm working.
Yeah. Definitely. That's one of the things that I get to do all the day, all day. I love it.
It's
I,
awesome.
people, it's perceived as work. Like Sabrina's working all the time, but I freaking love it.
Yeah.
I
And that's
don't.
the thing. They're like, I know you're really busy. I don't care. It's
Yeah.
great. I'm going to 2 different networking things today. I've had 5 meetings with 4 different parts of the organization, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah. Exactly. I know you work with a lot of young girls, but I want to ask, what would you say, or what would be some advice to mothers with teenage girls?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Let's
It's
go with
really
between the age of 14 and 16. I want to get specific.
okay.
Go ahead.
So, in our training for our facilitators that go into the schools and talk to the kids, our facilitator coach is a licensed master social worker. And so, we actually, with the women, go through the brain development in order for them to understand who they're talking to. Their brains are not fully developed till they're 25. Kids live on emotion until they're 25. Their frontal lobe is not developed. 25. Everything is based on emotions. All decisions, everything is emotional based. Okay. So, what's happening right now is that parents are in this emergency mode, like everything's expensive. How am I going to pay my car payment? And then your little girl comes home and she's like, well, Sarah was mean to me today. And I really liked so and so. And she's like, this is not important. This is not something I need to even worry about right now. But to that child, that is life shattering stuff.
Yeah.
So I think make the time to talk about those little things that to our adult brain is highly not important. And we're all going to live whether or not Johnny talks to you tomorrow. Like, it's whatever. You'll get over it in a month. You know, like, you're like, well, I got over it. It's fine. You don't know you're going to get over it until you do. And while you're in it, you kind of need to know that somebody's listening.
Yeah.
Can your mom do anything about it? Probably not. But if you just sat down and just said, tell me about it, and sat with her for an extra 15 minutes while she told you everything, your relationship will grow.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to give advice. You don't have to do it. You just have to listen and be there. Because that's what they're asking for.
Yeah. Definitely. I agree with that. And good to know I'm doing it correctly. So thank you.
I mean, I didn't raise
Because
kids. This is
sometimes
what I do.
it
This is my
seems
way of parenting.
so dramatic.
And you're
And
like, oh my God, does it really have to be this dramatic? And then you have to like take it out of your own mind and take a step back and be like, it does need to be this traumatic. Please, dear God, tell me what happened. You know, and usually it's this crying and this craziness for like a couple minutes, and they're like, it'll be fine. You know?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. Very
But
good. Thank you.
minimizing, I think, is what happens a lot.
To minimize or not to minimize?
That we minimize what's going on with them
Yeah.
because we have so much going on for us.
Yeah. Definitely. So being present.
Once again,
Yeah.
present gratitude.
I love it. So I want to take a few moments to acknowledge those listening live. Thank you so much for being here, hanging out with Maryanna and I as we chit chat about all the things. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so that we know where you are and we can send you some love. But I want to dive into all of the stuff. Dream Queen Foundation. Tell us what it is and what you do and how you help and all the things.
Oh, wonderful. So Dream Queen Foundation is a nonprofit. And we have three different programs. Our women's networking is not part of the nonprofit, but I do run that. So we have networking groups and 4 different groups that come together, women. It's a $10 a month membership, and it's a space where you're able to share and come together and create and manifest and all of those things. It's a really supportive space to be in. So that's the women's networking. And then Gals Lead is our teen mentorship and leadership program. It is a 30-week curriculum that goes through 4 pillars of success: knowing yourself, dreaming big, overcoming obstacles, and taking action. And we facilitate that in schools and after school. Right now, I've only been doing this for a year and we're expanding, but last year we had 2 clubs. This year we have 7. I'm working on creating a repeatable system in order to be able to train more women in more areas to do the same work. It's not there yet. Call me in a year. But we also have our Facilitator Academy. It's a certification process, which is a whole nother program within that, where myself and our facilitator coach, Kathleen Stark, she's a woo-woo therapist, LSMW. Yeah, no, LMSW, whatever. You're fine, Kathleen. Anyway, but through that, we do an 8-hour certification. We have monthly check-ins. And then I also run the program side for the Gals Lead. So acquiring schools that want to have programs, writing grants so that we can put our programs in school without money. I've learned how to do so many different things in the last year. But the big thing that I'm working on right now is making the facilitator side of things more of a collaboration with me in the program side. So the program itself was written 10 years ago. There's videos and activities that kids now may not relate to at all.
Got it.
When the facilitators are in the room, they have the space to pivot when necessary. But what I ask in return is for them to tell me where they pivoted, how they pivoted, what other video did they use? Did they do a different activity? Because then I'm going to keep updating the program.
Yeah.
So I want the online as well as the manual to be a living, breathing, growing, constantly evolving program that's going to be what the next kid needs. And so that's my biggest thing right now is just working with the women and giving them that authority. Do it.
Yeah.
We already vetted you. We know what kind of person you are. You're supposed to be in that room with those kids. Tell me what you're doing because I
Yeah.
want to make sure that every kid has access to that. So those are the three programs. A fundraiser coming up, Veterans Day Festival. This is our second year at the Port of Leonardtown in Leonardtown, Maryland. And if you want to donate, you can go to dreamqueenfoundation.org. And there's different donor levels for business owners as well as individuals. We kind of have everything kind of mixed together. So, if you have a business, you'll be on websites and marketing materials and books and things like that. And then we also, like, as a donor, we also send you a journal and make sure you're on our newsletter and that you're acknowledged and, and that we send you some of the feedback from the girls. I mean, that's the big thing now is that I want to make sure we're getting as much feedback as possible. But so those are some of the things. But I mean, it's just every day is awesome. I mean, this morning I went to a networking group and then I talked to our website and logistical person who are both volunteers, by the way, for an hour working on that stuff. And then it's just great, Oh, who else? Oh, then I was talking to two of our facilitators about doing assemblies in their schools to get more girls to participate and who we wanted to have come speak and how we're going to lay it out and how we're going to do the agenda and just taking a hat off and putting a hat on and just making this train go. I'm loving it.
I love it. That's awesome. Why do you do what you do?
It makes me happy. I am happier than I have been. I can't even explain. So do what you love. The money will follow. I believe that just because I took a hit now doesn't mean I'm going to be, downtrodden or whatever. I feel like I'm doing something that's really, really worth doing.
What are your big dreams for Dream Queen Foundation?
International.
I love it.
I want to make sure I want to create a online platform. I have mostly, that's definitely down the road, but where somebody could actually self-guide some of the stuff, most of the stuff women could use it. It's just the way it's logoed or whatever, but to make it so somebody could just be like, I want to pay X amount and self-guide through this. I don't want to be in a club. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to do the exercises and work on myself. I want that to be available. Or where people could do it together like a book club, but instead they're going through this curriculum week after week together, where it is going to guide them appropriately and give them the amount of information they need to make it successful.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Well, this was awesome. I so appreciate you being here and hanging out with me and sharing all this goodness with us. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Be grateful. Be in the moment. If you're watching this podcast, take the time to put your phone down and listen. When you're sitting with your family, take the time to listen. We don't get to know what's going to happen tomorrow. So appreciate everything because then life is so much more beautiful.
Yeah, definitely 100%. Well, thank you so much, Maryanna. For those of you that resonated with all the goodness that she shared, make sure you connect with her, dreamqueenfoundation.org. And what's a good social media? Where are you most present at?
I am most present on Facebook, even though I'm really trying to be on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. But yeah, and my name is Maryanna Lanham. I'm the only one. I'm very easy to find.
I love it. Very, very cool. Well, we love connecting people here on this platform so that we can all continue to rise. So reach out, comment, and direct message. Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, make sure to reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As